The rain fell hard on the training grounds. Colonel Hyunwoo watched his soldiers move through the obstacle course like water flowing downhill. Every movement was perfect. Every step was calculated. This was what 3 generations of breeding and training had created. "Faster," he shouted. "The devourers won't wait for you to catch your breath." The soldiers pushed harder. They always did. They had been born for this. Their parents had been born for this. Their grandparents had been born for this. Ever since the Valorians came to Earth 87 years ago, humanity had one purpose: become the ultimate warriors. Hyunwoo's communicator buzzed. The face of Overseer Talvanith appeared on the screen. The alien's crystalline skin reflected the gray sky. Its eyes, black and deep, seemed to look right through him. "Colonel," the Valorian said, "your progress is acceptable. But acceptable is not excellent. We need excellence." "Yes, Overseer," Hyunwoo replied. He had learned long ago not to argue with the Valorians. "The Devourers approach. Our calculations show they will arrive within 3 months. All of Earth must be ready." The screen went dark. Hyunwoo stared at it for a moment. Something felt wrong, but he could not name it. He had felt this wrongness for years now, growing slowly like a seed in dark soil. Captain Jiwoo walked up beside him. She was his second in command and the smartest officer he had ever known. Her eyes were always watching, always calculating. "You feel it too," she said quietly. It was not a question. "Feel what?" Hyunwoo asked. "That something is not right about all of this." Jiwoo looked at the soldiers training below. "We've been preparing for this enemy for nearly a century, but the Valorians never let us see any real data about them. No images, no tactical analysis, nothing except what they tell us." Hyunwoo glanced around to make sure no one else was listening. "Careful. They can read thoughts. Not if you think loud enough about other things," Jiwoo said. "I've been testing it. Fill your mind with training protocols and battle scenarios. It creates noise they can't see through." This was news to Hyunwoo. "Dangerous news." "Useful news, what have you found?" he asked. Jiwoo pulled a small data chip from her pocket. "My sister Soo-jin works at the Xenobiological Research Station. She's been reviewing old records from when the Valorians first arrived. There are mentions of 47 other worlds. Worlds the Valorians helped just like us. Helped how? That's the problem. The records stop. Every single one. The Valorians trained them, prepared them, and then nothing. No more data. No follow-up. Just silence." A cold feeling spread through Hyunwoo's chest. He had his own secrets too. In his quarters, locked in a safe, were his grandfather's journals. The old man had been alive during first contact. He had written things that made no sense at the time. But now, with what Jiwoo was saying, they started to fit together like puzzle pieces. "My grandfather wrote that the Valorians measured us," Hyunwoo said softly. "Not just our military strength. They measured our genetics, our psychology, our breeding patterns. He thought they were selecting for something. For what? He died before he could figure it out. But he was scared. Really scared. He wrote that we should never trust them completely." Jiwoo nodded. "I need to dig deeper. But I need your permission. What I'm doing could be seen as treason." Hyunwoo looked at his soldiers again. They were perfect specimens. Stronger than any humans in history. Faster, smarter. Their bodies had been enhanced with Valorian technology. Their minds had been trained from birth. They were weapons, each and every one, and weapons could be pointed in any direction. "Do what you need to do," he said. "But be careful." That evening, Hyunwoo sat in his quarters reading his grandfather's journal. The old man's handwriting was shaky, written in the last days of his life. "They are not saviors," one entry read. "They are farmers. And we are the crop." What did that mean? Hyunwoo had read this line 100 times. Tonight it felt different. Tonight it felt true. A knock on his door made him jump. He quickly hid the journal and opened the door. Lieutenant Taeyang stood there, young and eager. He was 20 years old, part of the pure generation, born after the genetic enhancements became standard. He represented everything the Valorians wanted humanity to become. "Sir," Taeyang said, "Overseer Talvanith wants to see you. Immediately." Hyunwoo's heart beat faster, but his face remained calm. "Did he say why?" "No, sir. But he seemed pleased about something." They walked through the base together. Other soldiers moved around them with purpose. Everyone had a job. Everyone had a role. The Valorians had organized Earth into a perfect military machine. Talvanith waited in the command center. Around him, holographic displays showed Earth's defensive positions. Satellites, orbital platforms, ground bases, everything humanity had built under Valorian guidance. Colonel Hyunwoo, the alien said. Good news. The Devourers have been detected at the edge of your solar system. The battle we have prepared for will begin soon. How soon? Hyunwoo asked. 4 days. Maybe 5. Talvanith's expression, strange and alien as it was, looked almost excited. This is what your species has been waiting for. Your chance to prove your worth to the galaxy. What happens after we defeat them? The question came out before Hyunwoo could stop it. Talvanith paused. For just a moment something flickered in those black eyes. After, why, you will be heroes. Your species will take its place among the great warrior races. It was the right answer. The expected answer. But something in the way Talvanith said it made Hyunwoo's skin crawl. Of course, Overseer. We are ready. I know you are. We made sure of it. Talvanith turned back to the displays. Prepare your forces. All of them. Every soldier on Earth will be needed. As Hyunwoo left the command center, his communicator buzzed. A message from Jiwoo. 2 words only. Found something, he walked faster. Whatever Jiwoo had discovered, it had to wait until they were somewhere safe. Somewhere the Valorians could not hear. Above Earth in the darkness of space, the Valorian ships waited. They had been waiting for 87 years. Soon, very soon, the harvest would begin. But they did not know that in the heart of humanity, questions were growing. Doubts were spreading. And Colonel Hyunwoo, along with Captain Jiwoo, were about to uncover a truth that would change everything. The crop was learning to think for itself, and that was something the farmers had never planned for. The Devourer fleet came out of faster-than-light travel like ghosts becoming solid. One moment the edge of the solar system was empty. The next moment thousands of ships filled the darkness. Lieutenant Tae Yang sat in his interceptor cockpit, hands steady on the controls. Around him 500 other pilots waited in formation. This was it, the moment they had all trained for since birth. All units, hold position, came the command through his helmet. Wait for Valorian strategic orders. Taeyang watched the enemy fleet on his display. The ships were huge, dark, and moved in strange patterns. But something felt off. They were not moving like an attacking force. They were moving like they were following a script. On the orbital platform Omega-7, Dr. Sujin stared at her xenobiological scanners. As a civilian scientist, she was not supposed to be here. But her sister Jiwoo had pulled strings to get her assigned to the station. Now she understood why. That's impossible, she whispered. The signatures coming from the Devourer ships were wrong. They showed signs of Valorian technology. Not similar to Valorian technology. Actual Valorian technology. The same energy patterns. The same quantum frequencies. She quickly recorded everything and sent an encrypted message to Jiwoo. Her sister needed to see this. In the main command center, Admiral Dong-hyun sat in his chair and watched the displays. He was 73 years old. The genetic enhancements that made younger soldiers strong were killing him slowly. His body was shutting down, but he refused to retire. Not before he saw this through. Overseer Talvanith stood beside him along with a dozen other Valorian commanders. They had taken over all strategic positions. Human officers could only watch and follow orders. Deploy forward squadrons, Talvanith commanded. Engage the enemy vanguard. Admiral Dong-hyun wanted to object. His tactical training said this was wrong. The approach was too direct, too simple. But he had learned not to question the Valorians. They had technology and knowledge beyond human understanding, or so everyone believed. The battle began. Taeyang's squadron launched forward. His heart pounded, but his hands remained steady. He had practiced this 10,000 times in simulations. His targeting computer locked onto enemy ships. Fox 1 missiles away, he reported. His missiles streaked through space. Around him, hundreds of other pilots did the same. The Devourer ships tried to evade, but they were slow. Too slow. The missiles hit their targets and enemy ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Direct hit. Enemy vanguard is breaking apart. Taeyang could not believe it. The Devourers were supposed to be the greatest threat in the galaxy. They were supposed to be unstoppable. But they were falling apart like paper targets. On the ground, Colonel Hyunwoo watched the battle feeds with growing confusion. Jiwoo stood beside him, her face tight with concentration. This makes no sense, Hyunwoo said. They're barely fighting back. Look at their formation, Jiwoo said, pointing at the display. They're staying in specific positions, like they're supposed to be there. Like it's choreographed. Hyunwoo saw it now. The Devourer ships were moving into positions where human weapons could hit them most effectively. They were making themselves targets. Jiwoo's communicator buzzed. A message from her sister. She read it and her face went pale. What is it? Hyunwoo asked. Sujin detected Valorian technology in the Devourer ships. Not similar, identical. Jiwoo's voice shook. Hyunwoo, what if the Devourers are not our enemy? What if this whole thing is staged? Before Hyunwoo could respond, Jiwoo's fingers flew across her keyboard. She had been working on breaking Valorian encryption for weeks. Now with the battle creating chaos in their communications, security was weaker. She found a data stream, Valorian military channels, encrypted but not perfectly. She ran her decryption program. The first file opened. What she saw made her blood turn to ice. It was a report, a harvest report. It listed 47 worlds. Each one had been cultivated for military potential. Each one had been trained, enhanced, and prepared. Then each one had faced a staged battle against the Devourers. The best warriors from each world had been taken. The rest had been left behind, their civilizations broken. Earth was number 48. Oh no, Jiwoo whispered. Oh no, she kept reading. The Devourers were not an alien species. They were slaves, controlled by Valorian technology. They were sent to each cultivated world to perform the same ritual. A false battle to identify the strongest warriors. Those warriors would be taken, integrated into the Valorian military machine, used as weapons across the galaxy. Earth's population would be discarded after the harvest. Hyunwoo, Jiwoo said, her voice strange and distant. We need to stop this. Right now. Stop what? The battle? The battle is fake. It's a selection process. They're going to take our best soldiers and leave Earth to die. Hyunwoo stared at her. Everything he believed, everything he had been taught, crashed down around him. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind. They are not saviors. They are farmers. And we are the crop. Can you prove it? He asked. Jiwoo copied the files to a portable drive. I can broadcast this to every human military channel. Every soldier will know the truth. Do it. Jiwoo's fingers moved fast. She accessed the global military network. The Valorians had built it, but humans maintained it. She had access codes. She uploaded the files and set them to broadcast on all frequencies. This is Captain Jiwoo of Earth Defense Forces. She spoke into the communicator. All human personnel, all soldiers, all commanders. What you are about to see is the truth. The Valorians have been lying to us for 87 years. The files went out. Millions of soldiers received them. The harvest reports, the evidence of Valorian technology in Devourer ships, the plans for Earth after the selection. 47 minutes had passed since the battle started. In space, Lieutenant Tae Yang received the broadcast. He was in the middle of a combat run when the files appeared on his display. He read them in seconds. His enhanced brain processed the information instantly. Everything he believed was a lie. He looked at the Devourer ship in his sights. Through his targeting computer, he could see details now. Yes, there was Valorian technology. It was obvious once you knew to look for it. His communicator exploded with chatter, other pilots seeing the same thing. Soldiers on the ground asking questions, commanders demanding explanations. And then Overseer Talvinith's voice, cold and hard, cutting through all channels. All human forces, disregard that transmission. It is enemy propaganda. Continue the attack. But Admiral Donghyun, old and dying, had read the files too. He had suspected something like this for years. Now he had proof. All Earth forces, he said, his voice weak but clear. Stand down. Disengage from Devourer targets. Admiral, you do not have authority, Talvinith began. This is my world, Donghyun said. These are my people. And I am giving the order. All human forces, new targets, lock weapons on Valorian command ships. For a moment, everything stopped. 52 minutes had passed since first contact. In the command center, Valorian officers reached for their weapons. But human soldiers, enhanced and trained to perfection, were faster. They moved like lightning, disarming the aliens before they could react. Hyunwoo pulled his sidearm and pointed it at Talvinith. Tell your fleet to stand down, he said. Talvinith's black eyes stared at him with something like surprise. You cannot win this. We are superior in every way. You trained us, Hyunwoo said. You made us into perfect soldiers. You enhanced our bodies and sharpened our minds. You taught us to fight, to adapt, to overcome any obstacle. He stepped closer to the alien. You created weapons, but you forgot that weapons can choose their own targets. In space, Tae-Yang and his squadron turned their ships around. Thousands of other pilots did the same. The Devourer fleet suddenly broke formation and began to retreat. Without Valorian control, they were fleeing, but the Valorian command ships remained, and humanity's weapons were now pointed at them. The harvest had just become a war. The truth spread through human forces like fire through dry grass. Soldiers who had been linked through neural networks since birth shared information in seconds. What took the Valorians 87 years to build came crashing down in minutes. Private Jae-sung stood in a trench on the Korean peninsula, his rifle pointed at the sky. He was 19 years old. He had never known a world without Valorian guidance. His parents had been soldiers. His grandparents had been soldiers. He was born, bred, and trained to fight the Devourers. Now his communicator showed him the truth. The files Jiwoo had broadcast. The harvest reports. The evidence. Around him, other soldiers lowered their weapons. They looked at each other with new eyes. Everything they had believed was gone. What do we do? Someone asked. Jae-sung thought about his sister. She had been selected for advanced pilot training 3 years ago. The Valorians had taken her to their main ship for special preparation. He had been proud. Now he wondered if she was still alive. We fight, he said, but not the Devourers. We fight the ones who lied to us. In orbit, General Young-mi commanded the Asian Continental Defense Fleet. She was 55 years old and had been fighting since she was 12. She had risen through the ranks by being smarter and tougher than everyone else. When Jiwoo's broadcast came through, Young-mi read every file in detail. Her tactical mind processed the information and reached a conclusion in seconds. All ships, this is General Young-mi. Confirm you have received the intelligence package. Hundreds of voices replied. Confirmed. New orders. All vessels break from Devourer engagement. Target Valorian military assets. Authorization code Young-mi Alpha 7. General, her second officer said carefully. That's a direct violation of Valorian command structure. The Valorian command structure no longer has authority over human forces, Young-mi said. We were created to be soldiers. Now we choose what we fight for. On the main orbital platform, Admiral Dong-hyun watched the tactical display change. Human ships across the entire defensive perimeter were turning. Thousands of vessels, millions of soldiers, all moving with one purpose. Talvanith tried to access the Valorian command network, but Jiwoo had locked him out. Hyunwoo's rifle never wavered from the alien's head. This is a mistake, Talvanith said. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed something like fear. You cannot defeat us. We have guided civilizations for 23,000 years. We are advanced beyond your understanding. You're advanced, Admiral Dong-hyun agreed. His breathing was labored now. The genetic enhancements were failing. But you made a critical error. What error? You created the perfect warriors, but you never understood what that meant. Dong-hyun smiled, and it was not a kind smile. You taught us to think tactically, to adapt, to overcome superior enemies. You taught us that victory is not about strength alone. It's about will, about determination, about refusing to surrender. He coughed and blood appeared on his lips. You taught us too well. Talvanith looked around at the human soldiers surrounding him. Every face showed the same expression. Cold determination. No fear, no hesitation. Just focused intent. For the first time in his long life, the Valorian understood what prey felt like. In space, Lieutenant Tae-Yang's squadron approached a Valorian command ship. His targeting computer locked on, but he hesitated. His entire life had been built on following Valorian orders. Questioning them felt wrong even now. Eagle Squadron, this is Lieutenant Tae-Yang. Do you all understand what we're about to do? Yes, sir, came the replies. We understand. This changes everything. There's no going back from this. They were going to take us, one pilot said. Take us and throw away everyone else. Our families. Our friends, everyone. Tae-Yang thought of his mother working in a factory making weapons. His father teaching young soldiers at a training camp. His little brother, only 7 years old, already being prepared for military service. The Valorians would have discarded them all. Weapons free, Tae-Yang said. Fire at will, his missiles launched. Around him, his squadron did the same. The Valorian command ship's shields lit up under the assault, but the ship was designed for long-range strategic control, not close combat. It had not expected to be attacked by the very forces it commanded. The shields failed. Missiles struck the hull. The great ship shuddered and began to list. Across the solar system, the same scene repeated. Human forces, organized and trained to perfection, turned on their creators with devastating efficiency. The Valorians had military superiority. Their ships were more advanced. Their weapons were more powerful. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity. But they had never fought an enemy like this. They had conquered civilizations before. They had faced resistance. But those civilizations fought to defend themselves. They fought to survive. Humanity fought with rage. Every soldier knew the truth now. 87 years of lies. 3 generations used as breeding stock. Families torn apart. Lives dedicated to a false purpose. The Valorians had not just enslaved Earth. They had made humanity enslave itself. That kind of anger could not be measured by technology or firepower. General Young Mai's fleet surrounded a group of Valorian escort ships. The aliens tried to form a defensive pattern, but human pilots predicted their every move. The Valorians had taught them, after all. Every tactic, every strategy, every response to every situation. Now that knowledge became a weapon. They're trying to flank us from the left, Young Mai's tactical officer reported. Let them, Young Mai said. Route 3rd Squadron to intercept. Use the Crenshaw maneuver. That's a Valorian tactic, sir. Exactly. They'll never expect us to use it against them. The battle was not fair. The Valorians were physically superior, technologically advanced, and had thousands of years of military experience. But humanity had been bred for war. Raised in conflict, enhanced to fight, and most importantly, humans had learned something the Valorians never expected. They had learned to lie. For 87 years, humans had lived under telepathic observation. The Valorians could read surface thoughts, sense emotions, detect deceptions. So humanity had learned to hide, to bury thoughts deep, to think about one thing while doing another, to smile while planning resistance. The Valorians taught them discipline. Humanity learned to use that discipline to hide rebellion. On the ground, Colonel Hyunwoo listened to combat reports flooding in. The fighting had spread to every Valorian installation on Earth. Humans were attacking with coordinated precision. Beijing Command Center is secured. Valorian personnel captured. Moscow station under human control. New York facility reports Valorian forces surrendering. Talvaneth listened to the same reports. The alien's crystalline skin had lost some of its luster. How? He whispered. How are you doing this? You made us predictable, Hyunwoo said. You standardized our training, connected our minds through neural networks. You wanted us to think and act as one perfect military machine. He smiled. But machines can be reprogrammed. And unlike your previous crops, we had 87 years to learn your systems, to understand your technology, to find your weaknesses. Jiwoo looked up from her computer. I've accessed their main fleet communications. They're in full retreat. The command structure is breaking down. How long since first contact? Hyunwoo asked. 64 minutes. 64 minutes. Just over 1 hour since the Devourer fleet arrived. In that time, humanity had discovered the truth, turned on their masters, and shattered an empire that had stood for 23,000 years. Admiral Dong-hyun laughed. It was a wet, painful sound. You wanted warriors, he said to Talvaneth. You got them. But warriors don't just follow orders. Real warriors fight for something. And you gave us something to fight for. What? The Valorian asked. Freedom, Dong-hyun said. He slumped in his chair. His body was giving out. But he was smiling. And revenge. In space, the last Valorian command ship turned and began powering up its faster-than-light drive. Other ships did the same. The great fleet that had controlled Earth for nearly a century was running away. Private Jae-sung watched from the ground as streaks of light marked their departure. Around him, soldiers cheered. They had won, but Jae-sung did not cheer. He thought about his sister, somewhere in the darkness of space. He thought about all the others who had been taken over the years. The special training candidates, the advanced program selectees, how many had there been? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Where were they now? The Valorians were retreating, but the war was not over. It was just beginning. 58 minutes after first contact, the first Valorian command post went dark. It was a communication hub in what used to be Australia. Human special forces had stormed it with surgical precision. The Valorian defenders, trained for strategic oversight, had no chance against soldiers bred specifically for close combat. Colonel Hyunwoo monitored the assault through his neural link. He could see through the eyes of his soldiers, feel their focus, their determination. The connection that the Valorians had installed to make humans more efficient soldiers now worked against them. Sydney post secured, came the report. Minimal casualties. Valorian personnel contained? Good, Hyunwoo replied. Move to secondary targets. Beside him, Captain Jiwoo worked at her computer station. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she fought a digital war. The Valorians were trying to regain control of their systems, but she was faster. Every security protocol they activated, she bypassed. Every firewall they erected, she tore down. They're trying to activate the kill switches in our neural implants, she said. Hyunwoo's blood ran cold. Every human soldier had Valorian technology in their brain. Neural enhancements that made them faster, smarter, more connected. If the Valorians could activate those implants, can you stop them? Already done, Jiwoo said. I isolated the kill switch code 3 weeks ago. Been working on a counter-virus ever since. It's deploying now across all human networks. She looked up at him. I suspected they might try this. Hyunwoo realized just how long Jiwoo had been planning for this moment. How many sleepless nights she had spent preparing for a war she hoped would never come. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet. We're not done. In orbit, Lieutenant Tae-yang and his squadron pursued fleeing Valorian ships. The aliens were faster in open space, but human pilots had spent their entire lives training for three-dimensional combat. They knew how to use asteroid fields, planetary gravity, and debris clouds to their advantage. Eagle 2, cut left and force them toward the moon's gravity well, Tae-yang ordered. Copy that. Eagle leader. The Valorian ships tried to evade, but the human pilots predicted every move. The aliens had taught them too well. Every combat scenario, every tactical situation, every possible maneuver had been drilled into human minds since childhood. Now that training became a cage for the Valorians. They could only do what they had taught humans to expect. Tae-yang's missiles found their target. The Valorian escort ship's engines exploded. It began spinning out of control. Target disabled, moving to next contact. Across Earth's orbital space, hundreds of similar engagements were happening. Human forces swarmed Valorian ships like wolves, bringing down prey. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had numbers, coordination, and desperation. 3 generations of breeding had created the most efficient military force in galactic history. The Valorians had meant for that force to serve them. They never imagined it would be used against them. General Young-mi watched her tactical display with satisfaction. 61 minutes since first contact, the Valorian retreat was accelerating. They're abandoning their ground forces, her tactical officer reported. Predictable, Young-mi said. They're strategic thinkers, not warriors. They've never had to fight for their lives before. They always had others to do it for them. She opened a channel to all fleet commanders. All ships maintain pursuit. Do not let them regroup. I want constant pressure until they leave our solar system. Dr. Soo-jin watched from her research station as the battle unfolded. She had been analyzing the Valorian biosigns since the fighting started. What she discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The Valorians were not adapted for stress. Their physiology showed extreme reactions to danger. Heart rates spiking, neural patterns fragmenting. They were creatures of control and calculation. When that control was taken away, they fell apart. Humans, on the other hand, thrived in chaos. The genetic enhancements the Valorians had given them included stress resistance, adrenaline regulation, and combat focus. Traits meant to make better soldiers. Those same traits made humans dangerous when cornered. Soo-jin opened a communication channel to Jiwoo. Sister, I'm sending you something. A frequency that disrupts Valorian neural patterns. It uses their own implant technology against them. Will it work? I tested it on the Valorian prisoners here. They became disoriented, confused. Their telepathic abilities shut down completely. Jiwoo smiled. It was not a nice smile. Send it to me. I'll broadcast it across all combat zones. Within minutes, every human communication device began emitting the frequency. It was silent to human ears, harmless to human biology. But to Valorians, it was agony. Across Earth, Valorian forces collapsed. Their coordination failed. Their telepathic command structure shattered. They became individuals alone and afraid in a world that had turned against them. Admiral Dong Hyun slumped in his chair, barely conscious. The genetic enhancements were killing him, but he refused to die until he saw this through. Beside him, Talvanith knelt on the floor, hands pressed against his head. The frequency Sujin had created was affecting him too. "Stop this," the Valorian gasped. "Please, we surrender." "Surrender?" Dong Hyun wheezed. "You don't get to surrender. You don't get mercy. You are going to take our children. Use them as slaves. Throw away the rest of us like garbage. We only do what is necessary. For the Empire. For order in the galaxy. Order built on slavery, on lies, on harvesting civilizations like crops." Dong Hyun coughed up blood. "That order ends today." Hyunwoo stepped forward. "Admiral, we need him alive. He has information about the other harvested worlds, about where they take the selected soldiers." Dong Hyun nodded slowly. "You're right. We're not like them. We're better." He looked at Talvanith with cold eyes. "Lock him up. He's a prisoner of war now." 67 minutes since first contact. The remaining Valorian ships gathered at the edge of the solar system. They had come to harvest. Instead, they had been broken. Thousands of years of genetic cultivation, military preparation, and strategic planning had been undone in just over 1 hour. The Valorian fleet commander, Overseer Kelmarius, stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 47 harvests before this one, 47 successful operations, not a single failure in the Empire's entire history of cultivation, until humanity. "Prepare for faster-than-light jump," he ordered. "All ships." "We're leaving." "What about the ground forces?" someone asked. "Leave them. They're lost already. It was a bitter choice. Thousands of Valorian personnel abandoned on a hostile world. But Kelmarius saw no other option. If they stayed, they would all die. Humanity had been created to be the ultimate warriors. The Valorians had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, and now they were paying the price. The ships began to jump. One by one, they vanished into faster-than-light travel, running, fleeing, defeated. 71 minutes since first contact. The last Valorian ship disappeared from Earth's sensors. For a moment, silence filled the communication channels. Then slowly sounds of celebration began. Soldiers cheering, officers reporting victory, people crying with relief, but not everyone celebrated. Private Jae-sung stood in his trench and watched the sky. The Valorians were gone, but his sister was still out there somewhere, along with thousands of others taken over the decades. General Young Mi looked at the casualty reports. 340 million dead, human losses from the brief but brutal fighting. So many families destroyed, so many lives ended. Victory, yes, but at terrible cost. Colonel Hyunwoo walked through the command center. Soldiers saluted him, called him a hero, but he felt hollow inside. Everything he had believed in was gone. His entire life had been built on a lie. Now he had to figure out what came next. In his chair, Admiral Dong Hyun breathed his last. The old warrior had held on long enough to see his people freed. His face in death showed peace. Ji-woo stood by the window and watched Earth, the planet that had been a military training ground for 3 generations. The world that had just fought and won its freedom. But freedom, she knew, was just the beginning. The Valorians would return. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but they would come back. With more ships, more soldiers, more power, and next time they would not underestimate humanity. The war was not over. It had only just begun. 1 month after the Valorians fled, Earth was still counting its dead. General Hyunwoo stood in front of the memorial wall in Seoul. 340 million names were carved into black stone. The wall stretched for kilometers, a testament to the cost of freedom. He had been promoted after Admiral Dong Hyun's death. Now he commanded all of Earth's military forces. It was a job he never wanted. But someone had to do it, and the soldiers trusted him. "You come here every day," a voice said behind him. He turned to see Captain Ji-woo. She had been promoted too. Now she ran Earth's intelligence division. The bags under her eyes showed she had not been sleeping much. "I feel like I owe them this," Hyunwoo said, gesturing at the wall. "Every one of these people died because of Valorian lies. The least I can do is remember them." Ji-woo stood beside him. "I have news. We finished interrogating the Valorian prisoners. And there are 47 other worlds. All of them went through the same harvest ritual. Some submitted completely. Some fought but lost. Earth is the first to win. Hyunwoo absorbed this information. What happened to those other worlds? The ones that submitted were strip-mined for resources. The ones that fought were destroyed. Either way, their populations were reduced to nothing. Jiwoo's voice was hard. We're the only ones who survived intact. What about the selected soldiers? The ones they took over the years? That's the interesting part. The Valorians keep them in stasis on a fortress world called Kelvaran, thousands from each harvested world. They wake them up when needed for specific military operations. Hyunwoo thought of all the young soldiers taken for special training over the decades. Frozen in sleep, waiting to be used as weapons. Can we get them back? He asked. Only if we attack the fortress, which is deep in Valorian space, protected by their entire fleet. Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, start making plans. We're going to get them back. On the other side of Earth, in what used to be a Valorian research facility, Dr. Soo-jin worked in her laboratory. The Valorians had left behind a lot of equipment and data when they fled. Soo-jin had spent the last month studying it all. Now, she stood before a holographic display showing human DNA. Beside, it was a display showing baseline human DNA from before first contact. The differences were significant. 3 generations of genetic modification had changed humanity at a fundamental level. Humans were stronger, faster, smarter. They healed quicker. They aged slower. Their brains could process information at incredible speeds, but there was a cost. The modifications shortened lifespans, caused health problems later in life, made it difficult for enhanced humans to have healthy children without medical intervention. The door opened, and General Young Mi walked in. The older woman looked tired. She had been traveling the world, visiting military bases, speaking with soldiers about the future. Doctor, Young Mi said, I need to know. Can you reverse the modifications? Soo-jin nodded. Yes, it would take years and it would need to be done carefully. But we can return people to baseline human genetics if they choose. If they choose, Young Mi repeated. That's the important part. The Valorians never gave us a choice. We need to give our people one. I agree. I'm preparing a proposal for the World Council. Let everyone decide for themselves. Stay enhanced or return to normal. Young Mi looked at the DNA displays. What about the children? The ones born after this? That's more complicated. If we stop the enhancement process now, future generations will be normal humans. But the enhanced adults might have trouble having healthy children. We'd need to set up medical programs to help. Do it, whatever it costs. Young Mi turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Doctor, your sister saved us all. That broadcast she sent out. Without it, we'd all be slaves by now. Soo-jin smiled. I'll tell her you said that. Though I think it might make her head big. In the Intelligence Division headquarters, Jiwoo sat in front of multiple screens. She was monitoring deep space communications. The Valorians had left, but they were still out there. And she needed to know what they were planning. What she found was both encouraging and terrifying. The Valorian Empire was in chaos. News of their defeated Earth had spread to other cultivated worlds. Rebellions were starting. Worlds that had submitted were now questioning their loyalty. The empire that had stood for 23,000 years was cracking, but there was also a military buildup. The Valorians were gathering their forces, building new ships, preparing for something big. Jiwoo suspected they were planning to return to Earth, this time with overwhelming force. She wrote a report and sent it to Hyunwoo. They needed to be ready. Lieutenant Tae-yang stood in a shipyard and looked up at the new vessel being constructed. It was based on captured Valorian technology, but modified by human engineers. Faster, more maneuverable, better weapons. After the battle, Earth had captured dozens of Valorian ships. Engineers had taken them apart, studied every system, and learned how they worked. Now humanity was building their own fleet, not just to defend Earth, but to go on the offensive. Beautiful, isn't she? A voice said. Tae-yang turned to see Private Jae-sung, now Sergeant Jae-sung. The young man had been promoted after showing exceptional leadership during the battle. She is, Tae-yang agreed. When will she be ready? 6 months, they say. And we're building 50 more just like her. That's not enough. The Valorians have thousands of ships. Then we'll build thousands. We have time. Jae-sung looked at Tae-yang. My sister is still out there. In that fortress. I'm going to get her back. We all are, Tae-yang said. every soldier they took. We're bringing them all home. The World Council met to decide Earth's future. Representatives from every nation gathered in the rebuilt United Nations building. The question before them was simple but profound. What should humanity become? General Hyunwoo stood before them and presented the options. They could disarm, return to normal life, try to heal from 3 generations of militarization. The genetic enhancements could be reversed over time. Earth could become peaceful again, or they could prepare for war. Build ships, train soldiers, take the fight to the Valorians and liberate the other cultivated worlds. The debate lasted for days. Some argued that more war would destroy what little humanity had left. Others said that peace was impossible while the Valorian Empire existed. In the end, the vote was clear. 67% chose to prepare for war, not for conquest, not for revenge, but for liberation. The Valorians had created weapons. Now those weapons would free the galaxy. Late one night, Hyunwoo sat in his office reading through plans for the Liberation Fleet. Jiwoo came in carrying 2 cups of coffee. She set one in front of him and sat down. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too much to do," he replied. "We need to train crews for the new ships. Develop tactics for operating in Valorian space. Figure out supply lines. And we need to do it all while rebuilding Earth? We'll manage. Humans are good at adapting." Hyunwoo smiled. The Valorians learned that the hard way. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Jiwoo said, "I intercepted a transmission today from one of the other cultivated worlds. They're calling us? They heard what happened here. They want to know if we can help them rebel too." Hyunwoo thought about this. 1 month ago, Earth had been a slave world. Now they were becoming liberators. "What did you tell them?" "I told them to wait, to gather information, to prepare. And I told them that humanity is coming." Across the solar system in the darkness between planets, a signal was sent. It traveled faster than light, jumping from relay to relay until it reached Valorian space. In the heart of the Empire, on a fortress world surrounded by warships, the signal was received. A historian recorded the information in the Empire's archives. Species 48. Designation: Homo sapiens. Cultivation status: failed. Threat assessment: extreme. Recommendation: avoid all contact. Additional note: subject species displays unprecedented adaptability and resistance. They do not forget. They do not forgive. Probability of retaliation: 100%. The historian paused, then added one more line. "They are coming, on Earth." Former Private Jae-sung stood at a training ground and watched new volunteers practice combat maneuvers. Young people who had never been forced to fight, now choosing to become soldiers. They were not fighting because the Valorians made them. They were fighting because they chose to. That made all the difference. Jae-sung thought about his sister frozen in stasis somewhere in the dark. He thought about all the others taken from their families. He thought about the 47 worlds that had been harvested and destroyed. The Valorians had spent 23,000 years building their empire. Humanity would spend however long it took to tear it down. In his office, General Hyunwoo looked at the memorial wall photo on his desk. 340 million names, 340 million reasons to fight. He opened his communicator and began drafting orders for the Liberation Fleet. The harvest was over, the reckoning had begun, and across the galaxy, the Valorian Empire would learn what it meant to turn humanity into weapons. Because weapons, once awakened, could not be controlled. They could only be feared.